Amara woke up to find clumps of her beautiful hair scattered across her pillow like fallen leaves. Her hand trembled as she reached for her head and froze. Her long, silky hair, the pride of her family, was gone, cut in jagged patches. Tears filled her eyes as she stared at her reflection. And then, for just a second, through the shadows of the night, she thought she saw her stepmother's satisfied smile. But what Mama Kemi didn't know was this: the ancestors were watching, and they never forget. In a small, sunlit village in the heart of Nigeria, there lived a girl named Amara. She was 16 years old, yet her beauty and grace made her stand out wherever she went. People said her laughter was like a melody, soft and kind, and her presence brought warmth to even the coldest hearts. But more than her bright eyes and gentle smile, it was her hair that made her unforgettable. Amara's hair was no ordinary hair. It flowed down to her waist in rich, black waves that glistened like silk when touched by the morning sun. When the harmattan winds blew and dust filled the air, her hair still shone, dark and radiant, as though kissed by the ancestors themselves. For the villagers, it was a marvel, and for Amara, it was a treasure. Her mother had once told her, "This hair carries our family's blessing. Protect it always." Those words lived inside Amara like a sacred drumbeat. Her late mother, who had passed away 3 years before, had the very same kind of hair, thick, long, and gleaming. To Amara, every strand of her own was a reminder of her mother's love, her wisdom, and her strength. When grief threatened to overwhelm her, she would run her fingers through her hair and feel closer to the woman who once held her close. Amara was not only beautiful, she was also kind-hearted. Each morning, she rose before the cocks crowed to sweep her father's compound, fetch water from the stream, and help neighbors with their chores before attending to her own. Children ran to her when they needed comfort, elders smiled when she greeted them with deep respect, and travelers passing through the village remembered the soft-spoken girl who offered them kola nuts with both hands and a bow. Yet, for all her goodness, Amara was not spared the troubles of life. Her father, a hard-working village merchant, loved her dearly but was blind in one matter. After his wife's death, he remarried. He told himself it was for Amara's sake, so she would have a mother figure to guide her, but in truth, that decision opened the door to sorrow. Her stepmother, Mama Kemi, entered the family with her own daughter, Zainab, who was just 2 years younger than Amara. At first, Mama Kemi wore the mask of kindness. She smiled warmly whenever Amara's father was present, often patting Amara on the back or asking after her well-being. To her husband, she was a blessing, a woman who filled the empty spaces in his home. But when his back was turned, when he set off on long trading trips that took him far from the village, Mama Kemi's true nature was revealed. Mama Kemi's heart burned with envy. She saw how people's eyes followed Amara, how her beauty and grace reminded the villagers of her late mother, who had been deeply loved. Mama Kemi could not bear it. Worse still, she saw her own daughter, Zainab, always standing in Amara's shadow, never receiving the same affection or admiration. It was not long before her jealousy began to grow like weeds in fertile soil. One morning at the marketplace, the chief's son spotted Amara by a stall. With a bright smile, he greeted her warmly and offered her the ripest mangoes, fresh and golden, as though they were meant for her alone. Amara thanked him shyly, but from the corner of her eye, Mama Kemi's face darkened, her jaw tightening with rage. On another day in the village square, a group of women watched Amara walk past. Her long, black hair shimmered in the sunlight, bouncing against her back. The women sighed in admiration. Just like her mothers, they said. So beautiful. The ancestors truly blessed this child. Mama Kemi heard those words, and bitterness rose in her chest like fire. At home, it was Zainab who voiced what Mama Kemi herself felt. "Mama," the girl whined, "why does everyone like Amara more than me? Why do they always stare at her hair?" Mama Kemi's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. She drew her daughter close and whispered, "Don't worry, my child. Beauty can be taken away." Her words lingered in the air like a cold shadow. What Amara did not know was that her stepmother's envy was already turning into something darker, something that would soon shatter her world in ways she could never have imagined. When Amara's father left for his 2-week trading trip, he believed his daughter was safe. He trusted Mama Kemi to care for her. But as soon as he was gone, Mama Kemi showed her true color. From the first morning, life became very hard for Amara. Amara, wake up. Mama Kemi shouted before dawn. Go to the stream and bring water. Don't return until the gourds are full. So, before the rooster crowed, Amara walked in the dark to fetch water. When she came back tired and sweating, Mama Kemi gave her more chores, sweeping, cooking, pounding yam until her hands hurt, and washing clothes until her fingers stung. Zainab, Mama Kemi's daughter, did nothing. She stayed in bed, laughing while Amara worked. Sometimes she mocked her. Look at you, servant girl. All that pretty hair doesn't stop you from slaving like a goat. At mealtime, Mama Kemi gave Amara only scraps, cold yam or watery soup. But Zainab ate plates of chicken and rice, licking her fingers loudly so Amara could hear. At night, Amara lay on a thin mat on the floor while Zainab stretched comfortably on a soft bed. Day after day, Amara's hands became rough. Her back ached. Her stomach growled with hunger. But she kept going, remembering her late mother's words, "Be strong, my daughter. You carry our blessing." Still, even Amara could not bear everything. One afternoon, the whole village buzzed with news. The chief announced that his son would choose a bride at the harvest festival. People whispered excitedly. "Have you noticed?" one villager said. "The chief's son only looks at Amara." Another replied, "Yes, those two will make a fine couple." Mama Kemi overheard this, and jealousy filled her heart. Her eyes turned hard. "My Zainab deserves that marriage," she muttered. "Not this orphan girl. I will make sure of it." That night, Amara fell asleep, worn out from the day. Her long hair spread across the pillow like a black river. She did not hear the soft footsteps. She did not see the shining scissors. Mama Kemi crept into the room. With a wicked smile, she grabbed Amara's hair and began to cut. Snip. 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 Long strands fell in uneven chunks, some cut right to the scalp. She gathered the hair and carried it outside. In the courtyard, she set it on fire and watched it burn to ash. "Let's see who wants you now, foolish girl," she whispered. "My daughter will be the bride." Then she went back to bed, satisfied. At dawn, Amara woke. Something felt strange. She touched her head and froze. Her fingers felt bald patches, rough and uneven. A scream tore from her mouth. She ran to the mirror. What she saw made her heart break. Her beautiful hair was gone, hacked off in ugly chunks. She fell to the floor, clutching her mother's photo. "Mama," she cried, "she took the last piece of you I had left. Mama, where are you?" But this was only the beginning. The next morning, Mama Kemi pretended to be shocked. She pushed open Amara's door, her voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Amara. What happened to your hair?" she cried. Did you cut it yourself?" Oh, this poor child must be losing her mind from grief for her mother. Her words dripped with fake pity, but her eyes were full of satisfaction. Zainab stood in the corner, smirking. She acted innocent, as if she knew nothing. Mama Kemi quickly called the neighbors to come and see. Soon, curious voices filled the compound. People gathered at the doorway, whispering to one another as Amara hid her head under a wrapper. Some shook their heads sadly. "Oh, the girl has gone mad. She has cut off her own hair," they said, believing Mama Kemi's lies. Others frowned, suspicious of the story, but they kept quiet. Mama Kemi had a sharp tongue, and many feared crossing her. Then came the most painful moment. The chief's son, the very one who always looked kindly at Amara, stood among the crowd. When his eyes fell on her wrapped head, he quickly looked away, ashamed. Amara's heart broke into pieces. She could not bear the stares, the whispers, the lies. With tears running down her face, she ran from the compound and into the forest. Her feet carried her straight to her mother's grave. There, she fell to her knees, her chest shaking with sobs. Slowly, she pulled away the wrapper and exposed her ruined hair. Bald patches and uneven cuts glared back at her in the sunlight. "Mama," she cried, her voice breaking. "I kept my promise. I protected your blessing. But she took it from me while I slept. Mama, if the ancestors are real, if justice exists, please, let them see what she has done to me. At that moment, the forest grew still. Then, a sudden wind blew through the trees, bending the branches as if unseen hands were passing by. Amara froze, her tears drying on her cheeks. And then, like a whisper carried on the wind, she heard the voice of an old woman. Patience, my child. The ancestors have already begun their work. Amara's eyes widened. She looked around, but no one was there. Only the rustling leaves remained. She pressed her hands against the earth of her mother's grave, her heart pounding. For the first time since her hair was cut, a small spark of hope flickered inside her. But what Amara did not know was this: by cutting her hair, Mama Kemi had awakened something ancient, something that demanded justice. That night, Mama Kemi slept with a smile on her face. She dreamed of her daughter Zainab marrying the chief's son. She dreamed of people praising her for raising such a fine bride. But at exactly midnight, her peace ended. Mama Kemi woke suddenly to a strange feeling on her head. It started with itching, sharp, unbearable itching that spread across her scalp like fire. She scratched furiously, but the more she scratched, the worse it became. Something was wrong. Panicking, she lit a candle and ran to the mirror. Her heart dropped. With every touch of her hand, clumps of her hair fell out, sliding down her shoulders and onto the floor. Within minutes, ugly bald patches appeared all over her head. She screamed, waking the household. My hair! My hair! What's happening to me? Zainab rushed in and gasped in horror. Mama! You look like she could not finish. In her mother's ruined head, she saw the same shame Amara carried. Mama Kemi tried to cover her scalp with a scarf, but each time she tied it, her skin burned as if touched by flames. She tore it off, wailing. She could not hide what she had done. But the ancestors were not finished. Hair loss was only the beginning. The next morning, sores appeared on Mama Kemi's hands, the very hands that had held the scissors. They throbbed with pain and refused to heal. When she tried to eat, food turned to ash in her mouth, dry and tasteless. Whenever she closed her eyes, she heard the sound of scissors snipping and saw Amara's tear-streaked face staring back at her. Even mirrors turned against her. Every time she looked into one, she no longer saw herself. She saw Amara's broken reflection, crying silently. Then the curse reached Zainab. Strands of her hair began to fall out too, leaving her head patchy and bare. The villagers noticed at once. Whispers spread. Look, both mother and daughter are bald. They are cursed. The chief's son spoke clearly in the village square. I could never marry into a family touched by such darkness. Zainab wept bitterly. Mama, what did you do? What did you bring upon us? By the third day, Mama Kemi could not step outside without people pointing and whispering. Her market stall collapsed. Nobody would buy from her hands. Finally, the village elder came to her home. He looked at her and said firmly, Mama Kemi, the ancestors are speaking. What wrong have you committed? On the seventh day, Amara's father returned from his trading trip. But instead of the happy home he expected, he found chaos. He walked into the compound and froze. His wife and stepdaughter were bored, their skin covered with sores. His beloved Amara stood weak and thin, her hair destroyed, her eyes hollow with pain. His heart pounded. What happened here? Tell me the truth. Mama Kemi fell to the ground, her strength gone. She cried out, I did it. I cut her hair. I was jealous. I wanted my daughter to have everything. I burned her mother's blessing. Zainab fell beside her, sobbing. I knew, Papa. I knew what Mama planned, and I said nothing. I wanted Amara to suffer too. The father's face broke with sorrow. His voice shook. You destroyed my daughter, for jealousy. The elder of the village stepped forward and raised the staff. The ancestors have spoken. You have broken a sacred bond, the bond of a mother protecting a child. For this, you must leave. The judgment was final. Mama Kemi and Zainab were banished from the village. You will wander with your shame for all to see, the elder declared. And only when you find true remorse will you know peace. With heads bowed, bored and broken, they gathered a few bundles and walked away from the village path. 3 days after Mama Kemi and Zainab were banished, Amara sat quietly by her mother's grave. She still covered her ruined hair with a wrapper. Though she had forgiven, the pain was heavy on her heart. She whispered, "Mama, I don't hate them. But why does my heart still feel broken?" Then, something extraordinary happened. The same mysterious wind that once blew through the forest returned, stronger, swirling around her like an embrace. From the shadows of the trees, an elderly woman stepped forward. Her eyes shone with wisdom, her voice soft but powerful. "Child," she said, "you protected your mother's blessing with honor. You endured cruelty with grace. You forgave when others would have sought revenge. The ancestors have seen your heart." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Who are you?" The old woman smiled. "I am one who walks between the living and the ancestors. I have come because it is time." She placed both hands gently on Amara's head. A warm golden light flowed from her palms, filling the air around them. "What was taken in darkness shall be restored in light," she whispered. But even more beautiful than before. The light grew brighter, wrapping Amara like the sun itself. And just as suddenly as she appeared, the woman vanished like morning mist. Amara slowly removed her wrapper. Her eyes widened. Her hair had grown back completely, not just as it was before, but even more glorious. It flowed down her back in thick waves, touched with golden highlights that shimmered in the sunlight. But more than the beauty, she felt something deep in her spirit. Her mother's presence. Her love. Her protection. At that moment, her father found her by the grave. He saw her hair, shining like silk, and his eyes filled with tears. "My daughter," he whispered, "you look just like your mother on our wedding day. I failed to protect you. Can you ever forgive me?" Amara hugged him tightly. "Papa, you were deceived. But now you see the truth. That is what matters." 6 months passed, and life had changed for Amara in ways no one could have imagined. The chief's son came forward and, before the entire village, proposed to her properly. It was not done in whispers or secret glances. This time, it was with drums, with honor, and with the blessings of the elders. But Amara was more than a bride. She became known as a healer, a comforter for children who suffered from cruel step-parents. People came to her for wisdom, and her story spread far beyond her village. Her hair became legendary. Many said it carried her mother's protective spirit, a symbol of hope and blessing. The women gasped and whispered to one another, "Her mother's spirit is with her." The elders nodded solemnly, for they knew the ancestors had restored more than beauty, they had restored honor and blessing. On her wedding day, Amara wore her mother's traditional beads. Her miraculous hair flowed freely down her back, shining as she walked proudly to meet her groom. The entire village gathered. It was the celebration of the year. But at the village gate, 2 familiar figures appeared. It was Mama Kemi and Zainab. Their heads were still bald, their clothes torn and faded, their feet dusty from wandering. They looked weary, their eyes hollow from sleepless nights and shame. The joyful songs of the wedding quieted as the villagers noticed them. Whispers ran through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Some pointed, others shook their heads, remembering all the evil they had done. Mama Kemi's eyes fell on Amara. She gasped, for before her stood the very girl she had tried to destroy, now more beautiful than ever, her long, shining hair flowing like a river of light. Amara's face glowed with peace, her mother's beads resting on her neck, her spirit radiant with blessing. Unable to stand, Mama Kemi fell to her knees at the gate. Her voice cracked with sorrow as she cried out, "I destroyed everything because of jealousy. I let hatred blind me. And now, look what it has cost me and my daughter." Tears streamed down her face. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see what Amara would do. Some expected her to turn away. Others thought she might condemn them. But Amara, with quiet strength, stepped forward. She knelt beside her stepmother, her face gentle though her heart still carried the memory of pain. She placed a small bundle of food in their hands and spoke softly, her words carrying like a breeze over the silent crowd. May you find peace, Mama Kemi. May you learn that true beauty comes from the heart, not from tearing others down. This is my prayer for you. Mama Kemi and Zainab wept bitterly, clutching the food, their shame too heavy to bear. But Amara rose, lifted her head high, and walked on to her wedding. The drummers began to play again, and the people cheered, their voices rising in joy. Behind her, Mama Kemi and Zainab remained at the gate, bowed in tears, left to face the weight of their remorse. And so, dear listeners, this story teaches us timeless truths. Jealousy is poison, it destroys the one who carries it. Mama Kemi's jealousy did not lift her daughter. It destroyed them both. What is done in darkness always comes to light. Mama Kemi tried to hide her cruelty, but the ancestors revealed it for all to see. Grace is stronger than revenge. Amara's kindness and forgiveness gave her more strength than hatred ever could. Remember, what you do in the dark will always come to light. Treat others with kindness, for the ancestors are always watching. And they never forget. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more African folktales that teach us how to live with wisdom and honor. Until next time, may your path be blessed.